Hello, everyone. This is Matt, your local friendly gamer, and yes, once again, it's definitely been a while. Now, for those who don't follow me over at my Discord channel, uh, I did mention that I am trying to get back into trying to get back into semi-regular schedule with streaming again. Um, but I do have to kind of back up stuff and clear out my hard drive on my laptop, because that's where I keep a lot of the stream archives, among other things. So I will need some room before I continue with the Pokemon Violet playthrough. So that'll because that's going to be my next focus. But in the meantime, I am going to try to get a few of these discussion streams going because, one, I haven't done them in a while, and two, it also kind of helps me kind of gauge just kind of how I can handle, kind of scheduling around and stuff to kind of get back into, the streaming mindset and all that stuff. So, as far as kind of where I've kind of been at for the past couple of weeks, it's mainly concerning, helping family around with stuff, especially because my grandmother's health is declining. So we have to do whatever we can to make sure that she is, stable and all that. And roughly like the past week or so, my aunt and uncle were here, and we've been helping, clearing stuff out of her house, so that way we could hopefully get that put on the market soon. So it's just been quite a process. So in the time that I wasn't doing that, I was just trying to keep up with other freelance work. And of course, I'm kind of running out of space as far as the respective hard drives that I used to work on. So I'm probably going to have to back up all of my stuff soon. So that's going to take a little bit of time. So once I get back to a little bit of equilibrium, hopefully I'll have a better sense of when I can start things up as usual again. And I think, as I mentioned in kind of my latest update, I am gonna plan on doing a charity stream, hopefully sometime in June, likely mid to late June. And I might try to do a combination of stuff that I was initially planning for the spring and for around that time in that month, because usually then I dedicate the later months to Extra Life, especially with game day and end of the year stream and all that stuff. So with that said, I do want to focus as far as stuff regarding the Switch successor. Now, this is something that I honestly would have liked to have co-hosts for, but one, I've just been, it's just been kind of a bit of a trouble, having a little bit of trouble, organizing schedules and stuff, and mostly mine, but it's just, and the other thing is that, I already had to kind of nix a couple of topics that, I wanted to talk about for the longest time. But again, with the problems regarding schedules and stuff, I couldn't exactly quite, talk about those topics as much because, they became out of date. So I wanted to tackle this as quickly as possible before it becomes out of date. It's a good way to get back into, doing these discussion streams and stuff. Cause, I think aside from the beginning of the year when I was kind of hopefully planning stuff out for the year, as well as kind of a reaction to Pokemon Day and stuff, I haven't done a whole lot of these, let alone, ones where it's I do more than just kind of try to balance my iPad and, you hear out of my AirPods. because for some odd reason, Safari doesn't want to take external mics. But yeah, so the majority of this is kind of like the standard wish list and stuff. And then near the end, I'm probably gonna have like certain things that I'm kind of hoping, it's kind of like a mix of stuff that I'm probably expecting will happen, while some things that I hope doesn't happen, but given Nintendo's track record, it's a very likely possibility. Because as I know, especially since especially with kind of how long of a lifespan and how successful the Switch has been. Like, I think right now, overall sales, it's currently sitting between, I think two of Nintendo's other handhelds. Like, I think the current top dog is the Nintendo DS, and the one that the Switch passed was the Game Boy. And I think when I looked at VG charts. When it says Game Boy, it counts the Game Boy. It also counts like the Game Boy Pocket, and it counts the Game Boy Color as well. So that's what the Game Boy is. When it's listed as far as platform totals go. Just like I think the DS includes the DS, the DSi, and the DS XL. And the Switch is the original Switch, the Switch Lite, and the Switch OLED. So, hopefully, the successor will be counted as its own, separate entity. Kind of like akin to the NES versus the SNES. The DS and the 3DS, and the Wii and the Wii U. Which kind of goes into kind of the first thing that I just kind of hope that Nintendo does and does right is just, it's basically just kind of a way, this kind of like little banner right here, or well, probably not so little since it's kind of covering a good portion of the screen, but it's basically a roundabout way of, of the old KISS acronym, keep it simple, stupid. It's just, when, and hopefully, as far as like any sort of rumors goes, we might actually, see a good result, coming from this point. Just basically, just build on what the original Switch is already good at, and go from there. Don't complicate things for the sake of complicating things, and don't do new stuff for the sake of doing new stuff. Because we've already been there. And it's kind of what got Nintendo in a deep hole the last time. And yes, I'm specifically talking about the Wii and the Wii U. It wasn't so much of an issue going from the DS to the 3DS, and of course, last time, it actually worked to the Switch's benefit. But I think a large part of why it worked to the Switch's benefit is kind of based on kind of like three things. One, people weren't really ready to move on from the Wii U. Like, for as much as I still, have fondness for that console, even though it's looking like, it may not really work anymore alongside with my 3DS. Not to mention, online services for the Wii U and 3DS have shut down unless if you're going out of your way to find fan-made servers, you're pretty much out of luck. But yeah, it's just like, this time out, you already know that the Switch works. You know that it works really well. You basically invented the new market of the hybrid console with both portability as well as console functionality. Just make the next iteration of that and have it be that, don't, especially, just essentially making a significantly a more powerful Switch. That's literally all we're asking for. Don't do this thing where it's like, oh, we didn't even know what we wanted until we saw it, and now everyone loves it. Because yeah, that's just basically that's kind of what I'm hoping for. It's like no need to reinvent the wheel. You basically had to reinvent the wheel several times over to even get to this point, with varying degrees of success. Especially because the Switch is now Nintendo's only platform. They really, really have to get things right from the get-go. Because unlike Sony, unlike Microsoft, they don't really have much of a market in anywhere else. They tried with the mobile game market, and it started off well, and then they just kind of like were kind of like, which I mean that's a whole other discussion. But for now I do want to kind of stick in realms of the next console. So yeah, just make a more powerful Switch. Make sure that there's enough of a difference, and for the right reason, from going from the original line of the Nintendo Switch to this newer line that you're trying to get people to buy. Have a clear distinction between the two, and make sure that the distinctions are for the right reasons, especially in terms of a more powerful console. I think there's enough said when it comes to that. Which now going into what I hope for next. Now, obviously, if it's a direct successor to the Switch, backwards compatibility is a must. Obviously, if what we end up getting is not a direct successor to the Switch, which I think at this point they'd be stupid not to do. But it could be the backwards compatibility will be a bit tougher to manage, especially depending on what kind of physical media they want to do, or if they just want to straight up do an old digital platform. But yes, please, if it's a direct successor to the Switch, there is no reason why backwards compatibility shouldn't be part of the deal. It makes sense going from Wii U to Switch, because obviously because Switch doesn't take disc media. Obviously you can't have Wii or Wii U games without porting that, making a port, like a remastered port, kind of and also in a similar way you can't have DS and 3DS games because there's not a slot for those. But yeah, it's like it would honestly be really, really incredibly baffling if they do not include backwards compatibility, because I know that in terms of the models that allow for physical media, PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4, and I think Xbox Series X, not S because that's the all digital one, but Xbox Series X is compatible with Xbox One. So it would definitely make sense, if it's direct successor, it should be backwards compatible. But I honestly kind of want them to go a little bit further than that. And if it's a direct successor, there's a couple of other things, especially if they kind of want to, if they kind of don't want to give an unnecessary edge to their current competitors, which is the Xbox brand and the PlayStation brand. They got to do more than just simple backwards compatibility with physical media. They have to kind of, when I meant by connectivity with Switch, and when I have it at this banner here, I mean the transition has to be as seamless as possible. You know, stuff like, you know, if you already have a micro SD card that, you know, that you want to like, you know, copy your old data to from the Switch and have it be hackable to, you know, to the new system, you know, there'll be a way to do that. The store cannot be an empty, barren wasteland, especially if it's a direct successor to the Switch. By all means, that should include, you know, the digital library. So the digital library for the Switch should be the same digital library that the successor starts off with. You know, and maybe it might take a bit of time, you know, as far as that goes, you know, fine, fair, but it needs to happen. And it can't happen throughout the entire lifespan of the console. It needs to be like within the first year, like all of the offerings that the Switch has, you know, the successor has, you know, and this is all, and, you know, I know I've said this a few times before, but this is assuming that whatever we're getting is basically a next generation Switch. You know, a clear next generation Switch. You know, just don't, especially because, you know, the whole Nintendo eShop has been a thing since the Wii U and 3DS. You know, we should not have another generation where it's like, oh, like upon getting the console, you know, the digital shop is just completely empty and we have to wait forever for it to fill up with stuff, you know, it's like, no more of that, please. If it's a direct successor to the Switch, whatever is currently on the Nintendo eShop for the Switch should be what we're starting with the Switch 2, or, you know, whatever they decide to name it. That is even more so for the Nintendo Switch Online library. So, you know, if, you know, we should already have, you know, NES, SNES, N64, you know, Genesis, Game Boy Advance, and everything that's already on it should be on the successor. I have a feeling that they're probably not going to do that, but it's definitely something that they should be doing. You know, it's just, you know, it's can't keep doing this, you know? It's like, especially if it's backwards compatible. If it's backwards compatible, you know, people should be moving on from one to the other and not have to wait forever for the games that they enjoyed on the previous system to be on, you know, the shiny new system. You know, it's like they really need to really get this down. You know, we've gone through like several platforms where Nintendo, for whatever reason, likes to start off with a completely clean slate for both physical and digital, and kind of leaving everyone just, you know, kind of sitting on their hands waiting to see, hey, is this game that I like on this system going to be on this system? And, you know, it's just a coin toss of whether or not it happens, you know? You know, especially with their first party stuff, you know, it's like, you know, third parties, you know, it's not as much of an issue, you know, yeah, it may take a little bit of time, but it's like first parties. It's why we have a hard time, you know, trying to play games without emulating. It's like, you know, Nintendo likes to crack down on emulators like nothing else, but it takes forever for them to actually make the games available that we want to play. You know, the older games. You know, yes, we like the new games, but we also want to play the older games too. You know. All right, but you know, I've talked about this before, and I could also talk about digital preservation until I'm blue in the face. So, you know, I'm going to kind of move on now. All right. Next on the wish list is that, so basically what I'm referring to when it comes to start recognizing popular social media platforms and creator outlets, you know, I mean more outside of, you know, having connectivity with Facebook and Twitter or X, you know, and being able to add friends via that, you know, I mean, it's still nice that that they have that, yes, but it's like, you know, people can, connect via other ways, like Discord, It's just I really hope that someone in Nintendo realized, hey, no one's using, the messaging app we made, but everyone's using this platform called Discord. Maybe we should have a means for people to connect to Discord using their Nintendo account, and being able to have voice chat, within the console without needing to have like a smart device next to them or something, or having some way to keep track of achievements, or being able to like stream their gameplay live with friends or something. And on the subject of streaming gameplay, PlayStation and Xbox, for the past couple of consoles, you can connect with YouTube and Twitch and, stream your game from, to those accounts from there, This is actually also a really good starting point for people that do not have the money to invest in a capture card. Now, as far as like, say, trying to get like a camera or a mic to kind of, work with what Nintendo's got going with kind of like their hybrid platform. I'll go into that a little bit later, but even if it's just a matter of, hey, just showing your gameplay, it's just, yeah, that they need to find a way to kind of make that work, And I mean, it's already kind of bad enough that, it took them a while for them to get, Bluetooth, headsets and earbuds, compatible with, the Switch. So, and the fact that, the most that they were able to do is just having like, have the YouTube app or the Twitch app, as, offered through, their eShop. Which, in terms of the Twitch app, that's going out. That if that hasn't already gone out of service, it's going out of service soon. So yeah, that's unfortunate. So they need to find a way to kind of have people, integrate, other apps in order to both stream content as well as just connect with friends, online. They really should be on the ball with that, So, yeah, there's that. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have had this as like the very first thing, because this was the issue that kind of dogged Nintendo throughout the Switch's lifespan. Joy-Con should not be drifting. So, or basically like, their controllers, should not be drifting. Definitely make sure that, all of the physical equipment is, is ready to go. If not like day one or week one or month one or, heaven forbid year one, definitely be a lot quicker when it comes to like, getting it serviced, getting it fixed. Do not rely on the fact that people will just simply buy replacements. That's expensive. That's unreasonable. You really need to take the L a little bit quicker and not have to wait for a lawsuit to happen to fix a fundamental issue with your console or any pieces in relation to your console. Don't have this be a problem again, and if it is a problem, please fix it faster. That's all I have to say. I know, making something isn't easy, and sometimes you don't know something won't work until people try it out in the market, and and give them time to get mad at you for you to fix it. But And I'm not a hardware engineer, so there's only so much I can say, but, Nintendo, you're a big company. Please act like it. For the right reasons. Because sometimes there's been plenty of times that you've been acting like it for the wrong reasons. I'll definitely say that. All right. So, kind of going off of to like kind of the point before, yeah, I kind of forgot to kind of mention this a little bit because as far as this banner goes, but the dock needs. I feel like the dock should definitely be more than just a plastic hub, plastic port hub. So I would like for it to accept external hard drives while still allowing for SD or micro SD cards in portable mode, if that is all possible. And going off to the whole, hey, people should be able to stream gameplay off their consoles. If they want to attach a camera or a microphone, it'd be nice for the dock to have ports to support that as well. Or maybe have like some way for like Bluetooth connectivity for like microphones or cameras or something like that. But in addition to the Switch itself being more powerful, I would also like to see the dock kind of have a bit of a boost, rather than just being something made out of cheap plastic, if at all possible. That might drive up the cost, unfortunately, but especially if you can show that people can get more bang for their buck for a souped up dock, by all means. I mean, really, if anything, you could have like, what you could do is maybe you could have the Switch, come in like two sets. You'll have like the dock that behaves kind of like, the Switch's dock before, where it's just basically like a way to connect the Switch to the TV, and connect controllers, and that's it. And then maybe as part of like an upgrade, you could have a more souped up dock, which can be like, oh, hey, you can also connect external hard drives. You can also connect, a camera or a microphone. Or at the very least, maybe, if they still want to get the old hub, maybe find a way to kind of have like some sort of extension or something. It's just a thought, Or it could be like, a side grade later on for all we know, But, just an idea. And then finally, in terms of the wish list, and this is coming off of, just kind of, how sore, I kind of felt about, all the stuff with the Wii U and 3DS closing, and kind of how sore everybody also kind of felt with that too. Don't immediately drop the original Switch in terms of both technical support and software. Now, technical support is definitely going to stay around for a while. I'm hoping that at least until, hopefully, the successor to the Switch successor, that the technical support for the original Switch will probably end right there, But the software is kind of the big point, because I feel like, yes, they kind of were able to get away with, dropping the Wii U in terms of software support, because, after Breath of the Wild, it was clear that people were getting the Switch to play Breath of the Wild, because it's the better console, and, it runs, runs better, not just runs better, but it's also, you can play it on the go and stuff. But hopefully, especially, given that, in Sony's case, not nearly everybody has a PlayStation 5. So, of course, some companies are making games that are still supporting both PS4 and PS5. I am hoping Nintendo kind of splits their lineup a little bit. At least for like the first 2 or 3 years, where yes, there are games that only work on the Switch. It was the successor to the Switch. But then you have games where it's like, hey, this can be for both the original Switch and the Switch successor. maybe, they can even take a note from Sony and be like, hey, if you get this game for the Switch, you can get an upgrade to, whatever they name to the Switch successor. And I think one thing that I also would very much like to see as well is to, as they start trailing off, the library for like, the original Switch, or the original Switch line of, for the original Switch family, so to speak, definitely focus on, remastered ports of GameCube and Wii titles, maybe even remastered ports of DS and 3DS titles. That would definitely be very, very appreciated and very welcome. Also, definitely use this opportunity to flesh out the Nintendo Switch Online's offerings as best as you can for the platforms that you currently have available. NES and SNES is looking pretty good, but we definitely need to see more as much as possible with the others, namely Genesis, N64, and especially the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Like, man, those are still very barren, and it's like 3DS had more Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, and I'm pretty sure even the Wii U had more Game Boy Advance games. Come on, you can clearly do more with those. And of course, assuming, the two digital offerings are, even, that, you update for one and that you also update for the other. So, don't, the Switch is, unlike the Wii U, the Switch is very successful. Don't just suddenly drop it like a bad habit in order to pressure people of getting the new console. So with that said, there are a few things that I am kind of expecting in regards to the Switch. A couple of things that probably aren't very good, but maybe not so much as seemingly end of the world for Nintendo as the Wii U was, but still things that could potentially be of, concern or trouble. So, we're kind of start with kind of the more neutral of the expectation of what I'm expecting first. And that is, Nintendo's primary competitors might change. So, what I mean by that is that, especially because, Nintendo is not the only one doing the hybrid console anymore, because we have, the Steam Deck, Asus Republic of Gamer line, basically the line that I actually have both my current laptop as well as a portable secondary monitor. They released a hybrid console called the ROG Ally. I know Logitech, their gaming kind of brand, they also have maybe it's not so much a hybrid console. I think it's like an Android powered platform or something like that. But the point of the matter is that Nintendo is not the only one doing hybrid consoles anymore. So, and I mean, for all we know, there could be something developing at both PlayStation and Xbox along those lines as well. But, for right now, I think especially I think it's very safe to assume that there isn't really much aside from trying to get games that are available on, PC, PlayStation and Xbox. There isn't really much of a reason for Nintendo to keep pace with PlayStation and Xbox anymore, especially in the PlayStation and Xbox's current form, which is, the kind of sort of PC-esque consoles, but not really. So that still just happened to have, the PlayStation and Xbox brand. And I mean, to be fair, this was sort of technically true ever since, Nintendo did the Wii and the DS, and it was also technically true, when Nintendo had the Wii U and 3DS, and it's but I think even now it's kind of like more apparent, where it's like Nintendo doesn't have to kind of operate in the same measuring stick as the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. But rather, because now they have kind of competition in kind of a market that they themselves have kind of created by this hybrid platform. I think, especially with kind of how they want to like market themselves going forward, it's just keep going with the hybrid platform, because it's, in a way, it's kind of a combination of all of their, console offerings and all of their handheld offerings, kind of merging together. And it's definitely worked for the best, with, kind of like the first outing with this concept with the Switch. So I think, especially because now there's other companies that are kind of as part of, this little kind of part of the market that Nintendo has created. It's just like they really should be competing with, like the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally. They might still compete with, Xbox and Sony to an extent, but I mean, in a way, it could just offer to kind of, especially kind of, it's just basically kind of showing that kind of, the overall markets have changed. Plus, there's also kind of word that, well, okay, maybe not so much word, but also kind of like this feeling that, Xbox especially is kind of wondering if it should even, continue making the Xbox brand of consoles, and maybe just kind of like focusing on purely being a digital storefront, which, I mean, Microsoft is a little kind of late for that, given the fact that they have to compete with Steam, they have to compete with GOG.com, they have to compete with Humble Bundle and the like, but at the very least, it would hopefully give them something that might work out better, because, yeah, it's like, I'm not sure if Xbox has... I'm not sure if people have as much of incentive to get an Xbox as opposed to like just getting games on PC. And in a way, it's kind of starting to look that way for Sony too, because even when they have like exclusives of their platform, especially if it's something that's done particularly well, it will end up on PC eventually. Where it's like, for Xbox, it's like just basically, if it isn't already on PC when it comes out on Xbox, it won't take long for it to show up on PC, unless if it was like a few Halo games for like the longest time. But yeah, especially for as much as it as like the initial merging of kind of like their differing platforms has worked out for Nintendo, it does run the risk for like future platforms, especially because the thing is that there is a very likely good chance the Switch successor may not sell as well as the Switch by the time that that cycle is long and done. Now, obviously, within like the first half, it's not going to meet the same numbers as the Switch is currently. I think the Switch is currently like the third all-time selling platform. So that's a very high bar to beat. I mean, honestly, if it could even do like at least like half or 2/3 of that, I'd still say that's not too bad, Obviously, it really becomes an issue when it's like it can't even beat the N64 or the GameCube, which, despite how many people kind of have viewed those platforms very fondly, they didn't really sell all that well. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's not a good sign of it if it's kind of struggling to to meet those hurdles, which kind of what happened with the Wii U. So, and I think, depending on how big the difference is, it could end up being a result from, kind of similar how the success of, the NES, SNES, and the Game Boy platforms, and especially going from Wii and DS to Wii U and 3DS, I think there is a very, 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 very good chance that the current success of the Switch could kind of give Nintendo a reason to rest on their laurels a bit, and they might end up learning the wrong lessons of what made the Switch a great platform, which could in turn have a negative impact on the succeeding platform, even if it turns out that the platform itself is a better platform than what we have currently. The way that Nintendo can go about it could immediately turn people off and just either stick with the Switch or just not continue to support Nintendo outright. And this could range from another things, they could not fix the Joy-Con drift at all. It could, or heaven forbid that it be worse. They could not have backwards compatibility. They could start with a completely blank slate and have like a nearly empty eShop, and with also completely empty Nintendo Switch Online, or maybe that the game, or maybe the games that they offer, aren't necessarily, providing a reason as to why people should get this day one or week one, Like, I know people are starting to speculate that, given how long it's been taking for to hear any news on it whatsoever, that Metroid Prime 4 could likely be kind of like Zelda Breath of the Wild in a sense, where it's being made available for both the Switch and the new system. But, however, as much as I love the Metroid series, it is not Mario, it is not Zelda. Despite how great Dread did for the franchise, and especially how well Metroid Prime Remastered came out, unfortunately, Metroid doesn't move units as much as I would like to. Metroid, unfortunately, does not move units. So, yeah. So they could have an opening launch window that, is absolutely, poopers. And I mean, the launch window for the Switch wasn't exactly good either. I think there was only like a handful of games, and the game that they were hoping to really push the Switch with also came out on the Wii U, But I mean, it wasn't too long until, Mario Odyssey came out, and it wasn't too long until we saw like a whole, game after game after game after game after game that came out for the Switch. And now it's like there's so many games you can get for the Switch, including a lot of shovelware. So, but yeah, it's just like, I really hope that with how well the Switch has done for Nintendo, that they don't immediately start doing stupid stuff like they did with the Wii U. Adding in stuff that no one asked for, completely ignoring, requests that people would want to see in future platforms or future games or future functions or anything like that. I mean, we've already seen them kind of ramping up their copyright takedown shenanigans, just not too long ago. They are apparently taking down a bunch of content that was made available on on Gary's mod. And while yes, they do technically have the right to do so, it's just it gets a little crazy sometimes, and it's just, it aggravates people. It's like they aren't really too good with establishing a middle ground. They are very, very, very black and white when it comes to particular matters. Be it fan games, be it fan made content. They can be very Disney-like in their approach sometimes, And I mean, in general, a lot of companies based in Japan, or especially when it comes to the Japan branch of various companies, they get a little antsy when it comes to people using stuff that that it was created by their company, but using it for various transformative works. It's like the people that are making the fan content aren't claiming that the characters are theirs. They just want to use them to create new ideas and all that stuff. But I mean, especially with the internet, I could see they don't want people making certain kind of content or having their characters behave in a certain manner or say certain things that obviously would be a poor reflection on the properties that they make. And I get that, but again, it's like they don't establish a good any middle ground or a good or a good, let alone a good middle ground to work off of, which it kind of looks really bad, especially when there are other companies that are more lenient. They're like, hey, they pretty much say, hey, as long as you don't poke the bear too much, you could use our you could feel free to use our characters for inspiration for the kind of for the kind of work that you would like to make, just to kind of get yourself out there, and hey, if we'll like it, and hey, if we like it enough, we'll even promote it, we'll even have you come work for us. It's something that I wish that Nintendo and maybe even a few other companies would be more receptive to doing, but unfortunately that is not the world that we live in. And again, that is also going out of the realm of specifically the Switch successor. But I also remember very vividly of how much it basically negatively affected them, especially when they were struggling with getting the Wii U out there. Not so much the 3DS, but definitely the Wii U. The Wii U area is where Nintendo was very, very against creators, especially on YouTube, making content using footage from their games, especially the more recent ones. But even sometimes the classic ones, they get a little about, and they were also trying to establish the creators program, which it was a lot more of a hassle than it needed to be, which thankfully they just said nuts to that. We're just gonna let YouTube people just create content and stream on YouTube, just like everyone else, which they could have just done the entire time, and then maybe it would have helped people get a 3DS or Wii U or something, So yeah, thankfully, especially with how successful the Switch is, they've definitely been more lenient in that regard, but unfortunately not really so much with others, So I mean, they definitely need to. They definitely need to not go back into old habits, and definitely not form any new habits that could hurt them. When it comes to getting people to purchase their platforms and play their games. Don't need to make things harder than it already is. It's just like me trying to come up with my thoughts on the fly so that I could speak somewhat coherently in an unscripted video podcast, you know. Yeah, it's just you know, it's you know, it's just I definitely would like this to be yet another, you know, another generation of platforms where Nintendo, you know, plays their strengths, you know, puts their best foot forward. No nonsense. No need to make things complicated. No need to make things hard on yourself, and just, you know, just let people enjoy the games that they want, both new and old. I like to think that that's not a lot to ask, you know, especially because that doesn't have anything to do with, like, you know, the tech specs and stuff, even though some of the technical stuff was part of my wish list. You know, it's just mainly, in general, just to help have people have fun, and less of Nintendo trying to make people believe, hey, we gave this to you, please have fun with it the way we want to, you know. You know, less of that. You know, just allow enough room for people to enjoy the stuff on their own pace, you know, at their own preference, you know, that sort of thing. But you know, we won't know how it goes until it's out, you know. I mean, for right now, we're basically also just waiting on an official announcement. Right now, we only have rumors to go off of. They made, similar to when the Switch was known by its code name, the NX. You know, it's like we didn't know how true or false the rumors were. So it's just like with anything else, it's always best to wait for an official announcement. And seeing that the only thing that Nintendo has going on at the moment, as far as like first-party games, is basically ports, you know, port of Luigi's Mansion 2 and port of Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, both of which are going to be like late spring summer games. And the fact that they haven't really had so much in terms of a lineup outside of third-party stuff, which is fine, you know, it's laid into the Switch's schedule and stuff, you know, but, you know, I think especially like, given that summer is very big when it comes to like, you know, big video game announcements from like all of the companies, even though E3 is no longer a thing. Yeah, that would definitely be a time for Nintendo to at least, you know, unveil, you know, what the Switch successor is going to basically be about. You know, basically the reveal trailer that they kind of like, you know, the reveal trailer that they did for the Switch, you know, back in October or somewhere around fall of 2016, you know, something like that. So, and then we'll, you know, as time goes on, we'll get more information, and then, you know, we'll start getting an idea of, you know, what games will be coming out for it, and, you know, when to expect, you know, for it to be officially launched. You know, but, you know, it's like, I don't mind if it's going to be until like, you know, mid to late 2025, you know, especially since I kind of don't have the money to get like a PlayStation 5 or a Stream Deck. You know, I'm probably going to lament the fact that it's like, oh man, I didn't get my finances well enough together to get the Switch successor. Looks like I'm just going to be playing old video games for a bit, which I should anyway. My backlog is ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, just like with everything else, you know, I hope it does well. I hope it has enough that people, you know, will enjoy. I hope it has enough that I'll enjoy. You know, I'm generally I try to be like as easy enough to please when it comes to any given, you know, video game platform, or just like any given video game in general. You know, I try not to ask for too much, because I know it's like, especially, you know, behind the scenes and under the hood, it's so hard to get everything right at any given time. But you know, it's It's just, it would be nice if we have like a second consecutive good console or platform for Nintendo. Because I think the last time that we kind of had that, where there wasn't so much of a drop off between the previous platform and the platform after it, was, I think, the NES and the Super Nintendo. I guess in some ways you could probably maybe say, the original Game Boy family and the Game Boy Advance, and maybe the DS to the 3DS, but I think there's still quite a bit of gap between, the original and the direct, successors to those kind of deals, where it's like, that's still quite a gap. It's like, yeah, the Game Boy Advance and the 3DS still did well, and I hope at the very least the Switch successor can do that as well. I still call it, a pretty good run if it can at least kind of get to kind of how where the Game Boy Advance and 3DS is in relation to the originals before it. But then it's like, that still leaves enough room for concern to where it's like, then you start getting people worried about kind of like a potential downward trend, and see all of the "is Nintendo doomed" sort of articles, which is like, I kind of rolled my eyes at those even when they were around in the Wii U. So it's like, it's just whatever, man. It's just, but yeah, so all right, I think that will be enough for tonight. So next discussion, the next time I have a discussion stream, I'll probably pick, among like the game franchises that I still kind of want to talk about. Eventually, when I do enough of those, I'm probably going to have kind of a more general topic, kind of like this, maybe a couple of, general topics that aren't as time sensitive, hopefully. Cause yeah, I kind of prioritize this as a bit of a spur of the moment, just in case if we do end up hearing something about something during the summertime. I didn't want to have this be a missed opportunity, like a few of the topics that I've had planned out for like the past year or so. And I do hope to get to a point where I might occasionally have like a co-host or two. I've been wanting Phil to join me for a bit. I've also had a couple of other friends that I've also want to join me as well. It's just a matter of getting schedules together. That's always been the main issue, especially when it's mine. So but with all that said, thank you everyone for tuning in and letting me ramble for a good hour or so. A little bit of practice, I know. I'm trying to get myself back up to speed a little bit. So hopefully I'll get myself nice and warmed up by the time I decide to resume Pokemon Violet. Or at the very least, after I do another one of these discussions or so, hopefully I'll ramble a little bit less than I have here. But with all that said, thank you all for tuning in today. I hope you have yourselves a wonderful evening and an enjoyable weekend if you're in the Chicagoland area or find yourself visiting there. I hope you're enjoying C2E2. I'm hoping to be there on Sunday with my girlfriend, stopping by on a couple of booths. So yeah, with all that said, have a good night, everybody, and take care.